So now let's talk about another case. So like we've got clients that are already ISO 27001 certified, but at the time that we constructed that, 800-171 or CMMC were not a requirement. So my thought process as a consultant, if I was on the phone with them, is I'd say, you're likely meeting many of the requirements of CMMC, but certainly not all of them. So as an example, if you only needed to be L1 or L2, level 1 or level 2, we're probably in pretty good shape. If you need to get, up to 3, 4, and 5, you probably have a pretty fair amount of work to do. Your thoughts as an auditor?
Well, the most important thing is, from an auditor's perspective, is that you need objective evidence. Whether you are doing ISO 27001 or the CMMC, you're going to have to provide objective evidence that you've implemented information. You have documentation, records, or systems that demonstrate compliance to either the ISO 27000 requirement, or in the case of the CMMC, is you have the ability to demonstrate you have implemented those practices. One of the biggest challenges for doing CMMC is that because many of the practices have a technical focus, people may have the tendency to refuse to ignore the administrative side. That is, not having policies for each of the domains, not having plans that specify what is your approach and the resources that you're going to use and apply to ensure that you implement, maintain, monitor, and maintain each of those practices. So for instance, if you say, hey, great, I can show you that I've got the screensavers and all these things, the timing issues resolved, all the technical issues resolved when you walk away from your computer. But if you don't have a documented procedure that specifies, well, hey, make sure that that's implemented and provides the resources for it, you may have a shortfall there.
Gotcha. So let's talk about that. So let's talk through what it would take. So you're ISO certified. Now you're going to layer CMMC in. If I'm just kind of spitballing this, right, from my perspective, the first thing we'd have to do is update our ISMS scope statement to kind of reflect this CUI explicitly in any of the particular interested parties, including CMMC AB and my contractors and people of that nature. Any of the specific systems that are different or that weren't part of that, critical interfaces and boundaries, things of that nature. We might have to update I would want to update the risk assessment to make sure we're looking at that. That risk assessment would probably drive potentially some changes to the statement of applicability. I'd probably want to gap assess the implementation of our controls, versus the more prescriptive requirements of CMMC. And then, assuming that all went swimmingly, I'd probably want to validate that it all worked the way that I thought during my ISMS internal audit. If I had done that and you came in to audit me, thoughts?
I would say that, yes, if you updated your ISMS, your documentation, and you did the risk assessment, that you are on a good footing.
Okay.
But before you do that, and most important is you need to identify what CUI you have and where it resides in your environment or under your control. You need to review your contracts and work with your contracting officer to identify and understand the CUI requirements and also the CMMC requirements that are for your organization and the contracts that you have. You need to have a good handle on that before you get too far into this documentation, because you need to know, okay, where is it and how big of the impact it is, and then you're going to be able to do is figure out where you're going to need to apply and update your procedures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what you're speaking to is the concept within ISO of scope or context, and ensuring that we're doing a good job of really understanding all of that, which and then everything logically flows from there.
Yes, you need to scope the CUI and how the CMMC affects your organization, your systems, and then put together a plan of attack on how you're going to update your SMS and your current controls and practices to meet the CMC level requirements that are specified within your contract, whether it be a level 1, a level 2, or level 3. And initially, and also too is those requirements may change. You may initially have a requirement that you only need to have a level 1 or 2, but later on in the life of the contract, the government may come back and say, you know what, we're increasing the scope of the work, or guess what we're going to do is pass over more information to you to control, and some of this is going to be CUI, and you're going to need to do is make adjustments. You may have to start off initially with a level 2, but then later on in your contract, you may be expected to rise up to a level 3.
That'll be interesting to see how they're going to handle that. That's an interesting thought.
Yes, contract modifications are a fact of life with working with the government.